Dr. Sarah Chen had been staring at the impossible data for 6 hours straight, her coffee growing cold as quantum equations danced across her screens at the Deep Space Communications Array in Chile. The signal shouldn't exist. According to every law of physics she understood, the transmission that had appeared in their receivers 3 days ago was broadcasting from somewhere beyond the observable edge of the galaxy, using frequencies that required technology centuries ahead of anything humanity had developed. Still working on the ghost signal? Dr. Marcus Webb slumped into the chair beside her, his own eyes red-rimmed from sleepless nights. As the project's lead xenolinguist, he'd been trying to decode what everyone was calling the most significant discovery in human history. Any luck with the quantum entanglement patterns? Sarah rubbed her temples. That's the problem, Marcus. This isn't quantum entanglement. It's something else entirely. Look at these waveforms. She pulled up a three-dimensional model that showed impossible geometric patterns spiraling through subspace. The signal is actually creating temporary micro-wormholes to transmit data. Whoever sent this has technology that makes our most advanced theoretical physics look like stone tools. The breakthrough had come accidentally, as most revolutionary discoveries do. The Atacama Deep Space Array had been conducting routine searches for potentially habitable exoplanets, when their most sensitive receivers detected something that shouldn't have been possible: a structured signal carrying massive amounts of data, transmitted using principles that human science had barely begun to theorize. "Have you made any progress on the language patterns?" Sarah asked, knowing from Marcus's expression that the news wouldn't be good. "That's where it gets really strange," Marcus said, pulling up his own workstation. "The signal contains multiple distinct communication protocols. I've identified at least 7 different mathematical frameworks, 3 separate symbolic systems, and what appears to be a universal translator matrix. But here's the weird part. There's a section that seems designed specifically for species with binary logic patterns and carbon-based neural networks." Sarah felt her pulse quicken. "Carbon-based? You mean..." "I mean, whoever sent this knew about us, Sarah. They knew about human cognitive patterns specifically. The translator matrix includes conversion algorithms for base 10 mathematics, decimal time units, and even compensation for the way human brains process sequential versus parallel information streams. The implications hit her like a physical blow. For decades, the scientific community had debated whether humanity was alone in the universe. The discovery of potentially habitable worlds had raised hopes, but no definitive proof of intelligent life had ever been found. Now they had evidence not just of alien intelligence, but of aliens who had studied humanity in detail. "There's more," Marcus continued, his voice dropping to a whisper, despite being alone in the secure facility. "I managed to decode the opening sequence last night. Sarah, this isn't a greeting or a scientific exchange. It's a distress call." On his screen appeared the first translated section of the transmission. "To any species capable of receiving this transmission, the Zephyrian Inyan requests immediate assistance. Our worlds are under final assault by the Voidborn Collective. Our defensive capabilities are depleted. Total extinction of our species estimated in 847 of your Earth rotations. We have seeded this message across all known subspace frequencies. Any civilization with faster fan light capability and military technology capable of engaging Voidborn forces, please respond. Galactic coordinates follow." Sarah stared at the words, her mind racing. This is addressed to any species. They're not asking for help specifically from Earth. They probably don't even know we exist as a spacefaring civilization. That's what I thought too, until I found this. Marcus opened another file, showing a secondary data stream embedded within the main transmission. This section was encoded using prime number sequences that match Earth's early radio astronomy patterns. Someone wanted to make sure that if humans intercepted this signal, we'd be able to decode at least part of it. The embedded message was shorter but far more disturbing. "Humans of Earth, if you are receiving this, your species has progressed beyond our last observations. Know that the Voidborn have marked your system for future harvesting. Help us stop them here, Oregon. Face them alone in your solar system within the next century." Sarah's hands trembled as she reached for her communication device. "We need to contact Dr. Windsor Petrov immediately, and get me a direct line to the UN Secretary General's office." "Sarah, wait!" Marcus grabbed her arm. "Think about what you're suggesting. Even if this is real, even if there really are aliens asking for military assistance against some cosmic threat, what exactly do you think humanity can do?" We barely have sustainable spaceflight to our own moon. Our most advanced weapons are nuclear missiles that would be useless in space combat. We don't have faster-than-light travel, energy shields, or any of the technology this message assumes responding civilizations would possess. She looked at him with the kind of determination that had driven humanity to cross oceans in wooden boats and split atoms with primitive tools. Marcus, you're thinking like an academic. But this message isn't just asking for advanced technology. It's asking for help, and humans have never been able to ignore a genuine cry for help, no matter how impossible the situation seems. But the technological gap is insurmountable. We'd need decades just to develop the basic principles of faster-than-light travel, assuming it's even possible. The aliens requesting help will be extinct long before we could even reach them. Sarah was already pulling up the stellar cartography data from the signal. The coordinates they provided placed their location approximately 47 light-years from Earth in the TRAPPIST system. You're right that conventional physics says we can't help them, but look at these quantum signatures embedded in their message. They're not just sending information, Marcus. They're sending blueprints. Her fingers flew across the holographic interface as she began isolating the technical data streams. The signal contains detailed quantum engineering specifications, power generation systems, material science formulas, and, she paused, her eyes widening, complete schematics for something they call probability displacement engines. What does that mean? I think it means faster-than-light travel that doesn't rely on moving through space, but on shifting the probability of being in different locations. It's completely outside our current understanding of physics, but the mathematics are elegant and internally consistent. Sarah was speaking faster now, the excitement of discovery overriding her exhaustion.
Marcus, they didn't just send a distress call. They sent us the tools to answer it.
Marcus stared at the scrolling data streams, watching as alien technology blueprints cascaded across multiple screens. Even if we could understand this technology, building it would require resources and manufacturing capabilities we don't possess. We'd need to completely revolutionize human industry. Then that's what we do, Sarah said simply. Marcus, 3 days ago, the most advanced thing humanity had ever built was the International Space Station. Now we're looking at blueprints for technology that could take us to the stars in weeks instead of centuries. Do you really think human ingenuity and determination aren't up to the challenge? The next morning, emergency sessions convened simultaneously in Geneva, Washington, Moscow, Beijing, and every other major capital. The initial skepticism of world leaders melted away as they were presented with undeniable proof. The signal was real, the alien civilization was genuinely in distress, and the technology they had shared could revolutionize human capabilities beyond imagination. Elena Petrov, director of the Global Space Initiative, addressed the emergency UN assembly via holographic link from the Chile facility. Distinguished delegates, I understand that what we're proposing seems impossible. The aliens requesting assistance possess technology that surpasses our own by centuries. The enemy they face is described as having already destroyed dozens of civilizations across this region of the galaxy. By any rational analysis, humanity should ignore this signal and hope we remain unnoticed. She paused, looking directly into the camera. But we are not a rational species. We are the species that saw a mountain and decided to climb it because it was there. We are the species that looked at the vast ocean and built ships to cross it without knowing what lay on the other side. We are the species that gazed at the moon and refused to accept that it was unreachable. Human history is a continuous story of achieving the impossible simply because someone needed help, or because we refused to accept limitations that seemed absolute. The Chinese representative raised his hand. Dr. Petrov, even accepting the authenticity of this signal, the practical challenges are overwhelming. The technology transfers alone would require collaboration between every nation on Earth. We're talking about completely restructuring global industry, redirecting trillions of dollars, and gambling our entire civilization on the possibility that we can master alien technology in mere months. Respectfully, Ambassador Liu, that's exactly the kind of challenge that brings out the best in humanity. The greatest achievements in human history have occurred when we faced impossible odds and decided to attempt the impossible anyway. Dr. Petrov switched to a display showing the decoded technical specifications. The Zephyrians haven't just asked for help. They've provided us with the tools to help them, and in doing so, to transform ourselves into a truly spacefaring civilization. The Russian representative leaned forward. What guarantee do we have that this isn't some elaborate deception? How do we know we're not being manipulated into developing weapons that could be used against us? Dr. Petrov smiled grimly. We don't. This could be a trap, a test, or a deception beyond our comprehension. But I'll ask you this. What if it's real? What if there really is a civilization facing extinction? And they reached out to us because they've studied humanity long enough to know that we're the species crazy enough to attempt a rescue mission across interstellar space. What if we're the only ones in the galaxy stubborn enough to help? The debate continued for hours, but the outcome was never really in doubt. When presented with a choice between safe isolation and dangerous heroism, humanity had always chosen heroism. The vote was unanimous. Operation Longshot was approved. Within 48 hours, the most ambitious project in human history began taking shape. Every major aerospace corporation, every significant research university, and every national space agency received the same message: drop everything else. This is now your only priority. The technological specifications from the Zephyrian signal were distributed to research teams across the globe, each focusing on different aspects of the impossibly advanced engineering. Sarah found herself appointed as the lead coordinator for quantum drive development, working with a team of physicists who 3 days earlier would have dismissed the theoretical framework as science fiction. Now they were racing to understand technology that violated every principle they'd thought inviolable. The probability displacement equations are actually beautiful, Dr. Yuki Tanaka from the Tokyo Institute of Technology explained during their first international coordination meeting. Instead of moving a ship through space-time, the drive creates quantum uncertainty about the ship's location. By precisely calculating and manipulating probability waves, a vessel can become more likely to exist at its destination than at its origin point. But the energy requirements must be astronomical, protested Dr. James Harrison from Cambridge. We're talking about manipulating fundamental quantum properties on a macroscopic scale. That's where the Zephyrian power generation technology comes in, Sarah replied, pulling up another set of blueprints. They've provided specifications for what they call zero-point extraction matrices. The devices harvest energy directly from quantum vacuum fluctuations. According to these calculations, a single matrix no larger than a car engine could power an entire city indefinitely. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. They weren't just looking at faster-than-light travel. They were looking at unlimited clean energy, revolutionary materials that could reshape engineering, and quantum computers that could solve problems currently beyond human comprehension. How long do we have? Asked Dr. Maffa, Sarah Okafor from the Nigerian Space Research Center. Sarah checked the countdown timer that had become humanity's most watched display. 739 days until the Zephyrians calculated extinction. But we need to account for travel time to their system, time to understand their tactical situation, and the unknown factors of engaging an enemy that's already defeated dozens of spacefaring civilizations. So we need to build impossible technology, master physics we don't understand, construct a fleet capable of interstellar combat, and somehow devise tactics to defeat an enemy that's never lost a war, Dr. Harrison summarized. All in roughly 2 years, using resources and manufacturing capabilities that don't currently exist. Sarah looked around the room at humanity's brightest minds, seeing the same expression she felt on her own face, the peculiar combination of terror and exhilaration that came with attempting something that absolutely couldn't be done. Ladies and gentlemen, she said, we're about to find out if humans really are as remarkable as we like to think we are. 6 months into Operation Longshot, the world had transformed in ways that would have seemed like fantasy just a year before. The old economic systems had adapted with surprising speed to support humanity's most ambitious undertaking. Stock markets now tracked the progress of quantum matrix assembly alongside traditional commodities. News broadcasts featured daily updates on zero-point energy harvesting achievements the way they once reported sports scores. Commander Elena Vasquez stood on the observation deck of Orbital Assembly Platform Alpha, watching robotic construction crews add the final superstructure elements to what would become humanity's first faster-than-light spacecraft. The vessel designated Phoenix looked nothing like the sleek ships of science fiction. Instead, it resembled a massive geometric crystal, its hull composed of exotic matter that existed in a constant state of quantum uncertainty. Status report, Dr. Fiu Chen. Elena requested through her communication implant as Sarah materialized as a holographic projection beside her. Quantum drives are operating at 97% theoretical efficiency, Sarah replied, her image flickering slightly as the transmission adjusted for the quantum interference generated by the ship's experimental systems. We've successfully created stable probability displacement fields around objects up to the size of a small building. The mathematics are holding up beautifully in practical application. Elena nodded, though her expression remained troubled. What about combat capabilities? We're not just building a ship, Sarah. We're building humanity's first starship specifically designed for war against an enemy we don't understand. The question highlighted the central challenge of Operation Longshot. The Zephyrian data packages had included detailed technical specifications for their own defensive systems, but the information about their enemies was fragmentary and disturbing. The Voidborn Collective appeared to be a nomadic civilization that consumed entire solar systems, harvesting both matter and energy while systematically exterminating all indigenous life. Dr. Marcus Webb, now serving as the project's xenological warfare specialist, joined the holographic conference from his research station on Luna. Elena, we've made progress decoding Voidborn tactical data from the Zephyrian archives. The picture isn't encouraging. Their ships are described as living metal that feeds on energy itself. They don't just destroy enemy vessels, they absorb them, growing larger and more powerful with each victory. How do you fight something that gets stronger by winning? Elena asked. You don't fight it conventionally, replied Dr. Kenji Nakamura, materializing in a holographic space from his weapons development facility in orbit around Mars. Which is why we've been forced to think outside every box humanity has ever conceived. Elena, the weapons we're installing on Phoenix don't just destroy targets, they unmake them at the quantum level. Elena's training as a fighter pilot had prepared her for advanced weapons systems, but the technology humanity was now wielding exceeded anything in her experience. Explain. Traditional weapons apply force to break things apart, Kenji continued. Nuclear weapons release binding energy from atomic structures, but quantum disruptors work at a more fundamental level. They increase the probability that the target's quantum states will spontaneously collapse into configurations that cannot support organized matter. In simple terms, Sarah added, we're not just shooting at the enemy. We're convincing reality that the enemy has a higher probability of not existing than existing. Elena shook her head in amazement. A year ago, I was flying supersonic jets and thinking that was the pinnacle of human technology. Now we're discussing weapons that rewrite the laws of physics and ships that travel faster than light by becoming uncertain about where they are. The scale of human adaptation had been extraordinary. Traditional manufacturing had been revolutionized virtually overnight as zero-point energy systems eliminated power constraints. Material science had advanced centuries in months as humanity learned to manipulate matter at the quantum level. Computer technology had leaped forward as quantum processing systems began handling calculations that would have taken traditional supercomputers millions of years. But the human cost had been significant as well. The entire global economy had been restructured around Operation Longshot. Traditional industries had either adapted to support the project or become obsolete. Social systems strained under the pressure of the most rapid technological advancement in human history. What's our personnel situation? Elena asked, shifting to the practical concerns that kept her awake at night. That's actually our biggest challenge, admitted Dr. Lisa Park, joining the conference from the astronaut training facility that had expanded from a single campus to installations on 3 continents and 4 orbital platforms. We're essentially trying to train interstellar combat pilots using simulators based on theoretical physics. None of our traditional training protocols apply to ships that navigate by manipulating probability. Elena had experienced this challenge personally. Flight training for probability displacement drives had required her to fundamentally rewire her understanding of motion and navigation. Instead of thinking about thrust and trajectory, pilots learned to visualize quantum uncertainty and probability mathematics. Instead of avoiding obstacles, they learned to become more likely to exist in spaces where obstacles were absent. The psychological adaptation has been remarkable, Dr. Park continued. Humans are demonstrating cognitive flexibility that surprises even our best models of neuroplasticity. We're asking people to understand concepts that contradict everything their senses tell them about reality, and they're succeeding. Marcus shared his screen to show footage from recent combat simulations. Watch this engagement between Phoenix and a simulated Voidborn vessel. The display showed what looked more like an abstract art demonstration than a space battle. Phoenix didn't move in any conventional sense. Instead, it seemed to flicker between locations, sometimes appearing to exist in multiple positions simultaneously, before suddenly consolidating at advantageous attack positions. The Phoenix pilot is using quantum uncertainty as a tactical advantage, Marcus explained. Instead of dodging enemy fire, the ship becomes more probable to exist in locations where the enemy isn't shooting. Instead of pursuing retreating targets, it increases the probability that the target's escape route leads directly into Phoenix's firing solution. Elena studied the simulation data. What are our chances? Honestly, based on everything we know about Voidborn capabilities, what do you estimate our probability of success? The holographic conference fell silent for several moments. Finally, Sarah spoke. Elena, by any rational calculation, our chances approach zero. The Voidborn have destroyed civilizations that possess technology similar to what we've developed. They've been consuming solar systems for thousands of years. They outnumber us by factors we can't accurately estimate. But Elena sensed there was more. But they've never fought humans before, Kenji said. Every simulation we've run, every tactical scenario we've analyzed, is based on the assumption that we'll fight like the civilizations they've already defeated. That we'll use their technology according to their logical frameworks and tactical doctrines. Marcus nodded agreement. The Zephyrians are a hierarchical species with rigid social structures. Their military tactics emphasize coordination, efficiency, and logical resource allocation. The other species the Voidborn have defeated show similar patterns. They fight wars the way they organize societies. Humans don't work that way. Elena realized where the conversation was heading. Exactly, Sarah confirmed. We've taken Zephyrian technology and modified it according to human engineering principles. Where they prioritize stability, we've emphasized adaptability. Where they focused on efficiency, we've built in redundancy and improvisation capability. Phoenix isn't just a starship. It's the most advanced expression of human problem-solving philosophy ever created. Elena looked out at the completed vessel. Phoenix had been designed by committee, built by corporations competing and cooperating simultaneously, and equipped with weapon systems that defied traditional military doctrine. By every standard of rational engineering, it should have been a disaster. Instead, it was the most sophisticated piece of technology ever created by any species humanity knew about. There's something else, Marcus said quietly. The psychological profiles we've developed of Voidborn behavior suggest they've never encountered genuine altruism. Every species they've fought has been defending their own territory, protecting their own resources, preserving their own civilization. They understand conquest, survival, and resource acquisition. They don't understand rescue missions, Elena finished the thought. They literally cannot comprehend why one species would risk extinction to save another species they've never met, Sarah confirmed. Their entire strategic framework is built around predictable motivations: survival, expansion, resource control. They've probably never fought an enemy whose primary motivation was helping someone else. Elena felt a familiar sensation the moment before a dangerous flight mission when all the technical preparation crystallized into simple human determination. When do we launch? Phoenix will be ready for initial testing in 3 weeks. Dr. Park replied. Full combat capability should be achieved within 2 months. But Elena, Phoenix is just the prototype. The real question is whether we can build and crew a fleet large enough to make a difference. How many ships are we talking about? Kenji shared a new display showing projected fleet compositions. Conservative estimates suggest we need at least 12 vessels with Phoenix-level capabilities to have any reasonable chance of engaging Voidborn forces. Optimal scenarios call for 24 ships with full support craft. Elena studied the numbers. Construction timeline? If everything goes perfectly, we could have a functional fleet ready in 14 months, Sarah said. That gives us approximately 4 months to travel to the Zephyrian system, assess the tactical situation, and engage the enemy before their projected extinction date. No margin for error, equipment failure, or tactical complications, Eleanor observed. None, Marcus agreed. But Elena, we've already accomplished things that were theoretically impossible. 6 months ago, humans had never built anything more complex than chemical rockets and nuclear reactors. Now, we're discussing fleets of faster-than-light starships equipped with reality-altering weapons systems. Elena made her decision with the kind of instant certainty that had made her humanity's first interstellar ship commander. Then we don't plan for things to go perfectly. We plan for everything to go wrong and figure out how to succeed anyway. It's what humans do best. The next months passed in a blur of impossible achievements. Phoenix's test flights redefined human understanding of both engineering and physics. The ship didn't just exceed design specifications, it demonstrated capabilities that surprised even its creators. Quantum drives proved more efficient than theoretical calculations predicted. Weapons systems showed effectiveness levels that pushed the boundaries of believable. More importantly, human crews adapted to impossible technology with characteristic ingenuity. Pilots developed navigation techniques that used intuition as much as mathematics. Engineers created maintenance protocols that treated quantum uncertainty as a design feature rather than a problem to solve. Tacticians devised combat strategies that emphasized human unpredictability as a primary weapon. The global transformation continued accelerating. Traditional national boundaries became less relevant as humanity organized around the shared goal of interstellar rescue. Economic systems evolved to support rapid technological advancement. Educational institutions restructured to train personnel for careers that hadn't existed a year earlier. But perhaps the most significant change was psychological. Humanity had always been a species defined by dreams of reaching the stars. Now, faced with the reality of interstellar travel and cosmic responsibility, humans discovered that their greatest strength wasn't technology or intelligence. It was their absolute refusal to abandon anyone who needed help, regardless of the odds against success. Eleanor stood once again on the observation deck, this time watching the construction of humanity's hope, the second vessel in what would become the Terran Rescue Fleet. The ship incorporated improvements based on Phoenix test data, but more importantly, it reflected growing human confidence in technologies that had seemed impossible just months before. Final systems check complete, Sarah reported. Phoenix is ready for departure to the Zephyrian system. All quantum drives show green status. Weapons systems are fully operational. Life support is stable for extended interstellar travel. Elena took a deep breath, tasting recycled air that somehow carried hints of the determination and hope that had built humanity's first starship. How many people said this was impossible, Sarah?
Everyone. Elena.
Including us. Elena smiled, feeling the weight of command and the lightness of human audacity combining in perfect balance. Then, we're right on schedule. Humans have always done their best work when everyone else said it couldn't be done. The Phoenix materialized in the TRAPPIST system 47 light-years from Earth, its quantum drives completing the impossible journey in just 18 days. Commander Elena Vasquez felt her consciousness reassemble as the probability displacement field stabilized, a sensation she'd never quite gotten used to despite months of training. For a moment that lasted eternity, she had existed everywhere and nowhere, her awareness scattered across quantum possibilities before condensing back into singular reality. Status report, she called out as her crew emerged from similar states of quantum displacement disorientation. All systems nominal, reported Lieutenant Commander Sarah Kim from the navigation station. Quantum drives are stable. We're approximately 3 astronomical units from the primary star, well within the coordinates provided by the Zephyrian signal. Sensor sweep shows multiple artificial structures throughout the system, added Dr. Marcus Webb, now serving as the mission's first contact specialist. Elena, you need to see this. The main display illuminated with what could only be described as a civilization in its death throes. Massive orbital platforms hung dead in space around several planets, their superstructures dark and riddled with damage. Debris fields suggested recent battles of unprecedented scale. Most disturbing were the strange, organic-looking constructs that seemed to be consuming the wreckage, growing visibly larger as they absorbed metal and energy. Void-borne harvester ships, confirmed Dr. Cole. Yuki Tanaka from her position at the Tactical Analysis Station. They matched the descriptions from the Zephyrian data, but seeing them in person is... She paused, searching for words. They're not ships in any sense we understand. They're more like enormous parasites that learn to travel through space. Elena studied the nearest harvester through Phoenix's advanced sensors. The creature, because it truly seemed more biological than technological, resembled a massive jellyfish made of dark metal. Tendrils hundreds of kilometers long extended from its core, dissolving matter at the molecular level and drawing the resulting energy into its central mass. As she watched, the thing consumed the remains of what had once been a Zephyrian defense station, growing noticeably larger and sprouting new appendages. Are we detecting any signs of surviving Zephyrian resistance? Elena asked. Marcus's expression was grim. Scattered energy signatures from what appeared to be hidden installations. The Zephyrians are definitely still alive, but barely. Most of their fleet has been destroyed, and the Voidborn are systematically consuming their infrastructure. Commander, interrupted Lieutenant Rodriguez from communications.
We're receiving a transmission.
Multiple sources, actually. Some appear to be Zephyrian, but others... He looked confused. Others are coming from the Voidborn themselves. On screen, the first transmission showed a being that was undeniably alien, yet somehow familiar. The Zephyrian resembled a cross between an octopus and a praying mantis, with 8 limbs ending in delicate manipulator appendages and large, multifaceted eyes that conveyed unmistakable intelligence. When it spoke, the universal translator protocols embedded in the original signal provided real-time interpretation. Unknown vessel. This is High Coordinator, Zeph KAL, of the surviving Zephyrian Defense Council. Your energy signature does not match any known allied species. If you are neutral observers, withdraw immediately. The Voidborn will consume any technology they encounter, and your presence places your species at risk of eventual targeting. Elena stepped forward, This is Commander Elena Vasquez of the Terran vessel Phoenix. We received your distress signal and have come to provide assistance. The pause that followed stretched long enough for Elena to wonder if the transmission had been lost. Finally, Zevkal responded, its voice carrying what the translator interpreted as profound shock. Terran, your species was observed approximately 3,000 of your years ago. Our records indicated primitive tool use and pre-industrial social development. How is faster-than-light travel possible for your civilization?
It's a long story, Elena replied.
But we're here now, and we're here to help. What's your current tactical situation?
Commander Vasquez, with respect for your apparent courage in traveling such distances, you must understand that the Voidborn have defeated 17 separate spacefaring civilizations in this region of the galaxy.
Our own technology was considered among the most advanced, and we have been reduced to hiding in scattered bunkers while they consume our worlds. Unless your species has developed capabilities beyond anything in galactic records, your intervention will only result in the eventual targeting of your own system. Before Elena could respond, a second transmission activated. This one came from something that had never been alive in any recognizable sense. The voice was a harmony of discordant frequencies that somehow conveyed intelligence despite its alien nature. Small ship that comes from distant consuming. We are Voidborn Unity of Eternal Hunger. Your species signature is unknown to our records. State intention or be absorbed for analysis. Elena felt her crew tense around her. Humanity's first direct communication with a genuinely hostile alien intelligence was not going according to any of their prepared protocols. This is Commander Elena Vasquez representing the human species of Earth. We're here to assist the Zephyrians in defending their civilization. The response came immediately, accompanied by what could only be described as laughter, though no human throat could have produced the sound. Small species from primitive world speaks of assistance giving. Your technology signature indicates recent development of probability displacement drives. Your civilization age suggests minimal space warfare experience. Why do small species from distant place believe intervention possible where advanced civilizations have failed? Elena glanced at her crew, seeing determination mixed with terror on every face. This was the moment that would define not just their mission, but humanity's first impression on the galactic stage. She made a decision that was pure human instinct, because we're too stupid to know when we're beaten, and too stubborn to quit when smart people tell us something is impossible. The translation of this statement apparently caused significant processing delays in both alien communication systems. When responses finally came, both species seemed equally confused. Zevkal spoke first. Commander Vasquez, are you stating that human tactical doctrine is based on refusing to acknowledge superior enemy capabilities? Not exactly, Elena replied, warming to the theme. Human tactical doctrine is based on the assumption that any problem can be solved if you're creative enough and determined enough to keep trying solutions until something works. We don't win by being stronger or smarter than our enemies. We win by being more stubborn. The Voidborn response carried undertones that the translator couldn't quite pass. Human concept of persistence despite mathematical certainty of failure is unknown to our experience. Previous species always calculate probability of success before attempting resistance. Why do humans not perform logical analysis? Oh, we perform logical analysis, Elena said cheerfully. We just don't let it stop us when the logic says we can't win. Here's the thing about humans. We have this weird habit of achieving impossible things specifically because everyone else thinks they're impossible.
Marcus leaned forward, recognizing an opportunity to apply his xenopsychological training.
Commander, I think what Elena is trying to explain is that human decision-making processes incorporate non-rational factors that other species might not consider. Specifically, we have strong emotional responses to calls for help that override logical risk assessment. Elena nodded. Marcus is being diplomatic. What he means is that humans are emotionally incapable of ignoring someone who needs help, even when helping them is obviously suicidal. Zevkal's next transmission carried overtones that suggested either admiration or concern for human mental health. Commander Vasquez, while we are grateful for your species' apparent willingness to assist despite overwhelming odds, you must understand that the Voidborn possess capabilities that transcend conventional military doctrine. They do not simply destroy enemy forces. They consume and integrate everything they defeat, growing stronger with each victory.
Right, Elena said.
So the key is not to fight them conventionally. The Voidborn transmission that followed seemed almost curious, Human commander suggests non-conventional approach. Define parameters of non-conventional warfare concept. Elena smiled, and her crew recognized the expression that had preceded humanity's greatest achievements and most spectacular disasters. Well, since you asked so nicely, let me show you something that human engineers built when they were told it was impossible to help people 47 light-years away. She nodded to Dr. Tanaka, who activated Phoenix's quantum uncertainty array. What happened next had never been attempted during combat conditions and violated several principles that Phoenix's designers had considered absolute limitations. The ship didn't become invisible. Instead, it became improbable. Phoenix began existing in multiple quantum states simultaneously, appearing to occupy 17 different positions around the system at once. Each quantum duplicate was fully functional, capable of independent action, while remaining connected to the others through quantum entanglement. "Elena!" Marcus shouted over alarms that began sounding throughout the ship. "The quantum drives aren't designed for this kind of multi-state operation." "I know," Elena replied calmly. "But they're working anyway, which means our engineers built something better than they realized." The Void-born response was immediate and aggressive. 3 massive harvester ships changed course toward Phoenix's position, their tendril weapons beginning to charge with energy that made space itself writhe and distort. "Elena, they're targeting all 17 of our quantum positions simultaneously," Dr. Kim reported. "They're adapting to our probability displacement faster than our models predicted." "Good," Elena said, which was absolutely not the response her crew expected. "Marcus, open a channel to all Zephyrian installations." Dr. Tanaka prepared to demonstrate why human engineers build things backwards. "Commander, Zeph-Carl's transmission carried urgency. The Voidborn are mobilizing multiple harvester groups to engage your vessel. Their combined firepower exceeds anything our civilization ever fielded. You must withdraw immediately." "Actually," Elena replied, "we must attack immediately. Dr. Tanaka, execute the probability cascade." What Elena had ordered was something that existed only in theoretical papers that had been classified because the mathematics suggested it might accidentally destroy entire solar systems. The probability cascade involved deliberately destabilizing quantum uncertainty fields to create chain reactions in local space-time. Instead of trying to avoid destruction by becoming improbable to hit, Phoenix made destruction improbable by making organized matter improbable to exist in its vicinity. The effect was spectacular and terrifying. As the Voidborn weapons fired, the energy beams encountered regions where the fundamental constants of physics had become uncertain. Electron orbital patterns fluctuated. Nuclear forces varied randomly. The binding energy that held atoms together became subject to quantum uncertainty. The harvester ship's weapons simply unmade themselves as they fired, their energy being absorbed by quantum foam that appeared spontaneously around Phoenix. But the cascade effect continued spreading, reaching the harvesters themselves. For beings that had consumed 17 civilizations without ever encountering significant resistance, watching their own molecular structure become subject to random quantum fluctuations was presumably a novel experience. The largest harvester began to dissolve, its living metal unable to maintain coherence as probability waves convinced its component atoms that they were more likely to exist in other configurations. The second harvester attempted to retreat but discovered that its faster-than-light drive had become uncertain about which direction constituted away from the expanding probability distortion. Elena watched the tactical display as impossible things happened according to impossibly modified physics.
Marcus, what are the Voidborn transmitting now?
Elena, they're not transmitting anything coherent. I'm getting something that translates roughly as confused screaming mixed with what might be requests for tactical clarification.
Zeph-Carl's transmission carried overtones of awe and terror in equal measure. "Commander Vasquez, what manner of weapons technology are you employing? Our sensors indicate that you are somehow making the fundamental laws of physics optional in localized regions of space." Elena looked around the bridge of humanity's first starship, seeing her crew managing systems that redefined the possible while maintaining expressions of professional competence despite accomplishing things that violated everything they'd learned about how reality worked. "Zeph-Carl, we're employing the most dangerous weapon humanity has ever developed. The absolute conviction that any problem can be solved if you're willing to try solutions that smart people say won't work." The probability cascade was beginning to stabilize as Phoenix's quantum drives automatically compensated for the massive reality distortions the ship had created. In its wake, 3 void-born harvester ships had been reduced to constituent atoms that were still uncertain about what they were supposed to be atoms of. Elena, Marcus said quietly, we just defeated an enemy that has conquered 17 civilizations by convincing physics to work differently. I think we may have just announced to the galaxy that humans are the species that fights wars by temporarily rewriting reality. Elena studied the tactical display, noting that the surviving void-born forces were maintaining careful distance from Phoenix, while apparently trying to determine what had just happened to their supposedly invincible harvesters. Marcus, get me a secure channel to Earth. I need to inform them that first contact has gone well, but we're going to need the rest of the fleet sooner than planned. Why sooner? Elena pointed at the sensor readings, showing dozens of additional void-born signatures appearing at the edge of the system. Because I think we just made them very angry, and they're calling for backup. The Phoenix hung in space like a geometric impossibility, its hull still flickering between quantum states as reality slowly remembered how to behave normally around the ship. Elena watched the sensor display showing the approaching void-born reinforcements and felt the peculiar calm that came with being so far beyond any reasonable chance of survival that panic became pointless. 43 harvester signatures incoming, reported Dr. Rowe. Tanaka. They're maintaining formation distance from each other, probably trying to prevent another probability cascade from affecting multiple ships simultaneously. Smart, Elena admitted. They adapt faster than we hoped. How long until they're in weapon range? Approximately 4 hours at their current approach vector, Lieutenant Commander Kim replied. Elena, even with Phoenix's capabilities, we can't engage 43 harvesters simultaneously. The quantum drives are still recovering from the cascade effect. Doctor! Marcus Webb looked up from his communication station with an expression Elena had learned to recognize as impossible good news. Elena, I'm receiving a transmission from Earth. The rest of the Terran rescue fleet has departed Sol System ahead of schedule. How far ahead of schedule? Admiral Sarah Chen sends her compliments and requests that you try not to restart the universe before she arrives to help. ETA is 6 days. Elena did quick calculations in her head. The Voidborn will be here in hours. Even if we can hold them off for 6 days, 43 harvesters is more than our entire projected fleet was designed to handle. Actually, Marcus continued, Admiral Chen specified that the fleet consists of 17 ships, not the 12 originally planned. Apparently, human industrial capacity exceeded all projections once people fully understood what we were trying to accomplish. Before Elena could respond, a new transmission arrived from High Coordinator ZFKL. The Zephyrian's image appeared on the main screen, and even across species barriers, his emotional state was clearly desperate. Commander Vasquez, our deep space sensors show massive void-born reinforcement fleets converging on this system. The force approaching exceeds anything we have records of them deploying against previous civilizations. Your demonstration of probability manipulation technology appears to have triggered what we can only describe as a panic response. Elena studied the tactical data the Zephyrians were sharing. The numbers were genuinely terrifying. How many total? Conservative estimates suggest over 200 harvester ships, with support vessels that we cannot classify. Commander, whatever technology your species has developed, it has convinced the Voidborn that humans represent an existential threat to their civilization.
Elena laughed, which was absolutely not the response anyone expected.
Marcus, did you hear that? We've officially graduated from primitive species to existential threat in one engagement. Elena, Marcus said carefully, I don't think this is actually good news. Oh, it's terrible news, Elena agreed cheerfully, but it means we're doing something right. Zefkaal, what can you tell us about Void-born strategic doctrine when they face genuine threats? The Zephyrians' response was immediate. There are no records of the Voidborn ever facing genuine threats, Commander. In every documented encounter over the past 3,000 years, they have possessed overwhelming superiority. Their tactical approaches have never been tested against equivalent opposition. Elena felt that familiar sensation of standing at the edge of the impossible. So we're in completely uncharted territory. They've never had to fight a war. They've only ever conducted harvesting operations. Doctor, Tanaka looked up from her analysis station. Elena, if Zefkaal is correct about Voidborn inexperience with genuine warfare, that might actually be an advantage. But 200 harvester ships is still far beyond anything 17 human vessels can engage, regardless of technological superiority.
Unless, Elena said slowly, we don't fight them ship to ship.
Marcus recognized the tone that preceded Elena's most dangerous ideas.
Elena, what are you thinking? I'm thinking about the fundamental difference between human and void-born psychology. They consume. They absorb. They grow stronger by taking from others. But humans, she paused, looking around at her crew. Humans build things. We create. We make stuff that wasn't there before. Elena, we can't outbuild them in 6 days. We don't need to outbuild them, Marcus. We need to outthink them. Elena activated the general communication system. This is Commander Vasquez to all stations. Prepare for deep quantum analysis of local space-time substrate. Tanaka, I need a complete survey of exotic matter distribution throughout this system. Elena, what exactly are you planning? Instead of answering directly, Elena opened a channel to the surviving Zephyrian installations. Hi, Coordinator Zeph Carl. I need detailed specifications for your most advanced matter conversion technology. Specifically, anything that can restructure raw materials. At the atomic level. The response carried confusion and growing alarm. Commander Vasquez, our matter conversion systems were designed for construction and resource processing, not warfare. Even our most advanced systems require days to restructure significant quantities of material. Perfect, Elena said, because I don't want to restructure material. I want to restructure space. The silence that followed this statement lasted long enough for Elena to wonder if she'd broken both communication systems. Finally, Marcus spoke in the carefully controlled tone he used when Elena proposed something that violated fundamental physics. Elena, you cannot restructure space. Space isn't matter. It's not composed of atoms or energy that can be manipulated by technological systems. Marcus, space isn't empty. It's filled with quantum foam, virtual particles, and zero-point energy fluctuations. The Zephyrian technology we've adapted can manipulate matter by changing its probability states. What if we scale that up? Dr. Tanaka was already running calculations on her workstation, her fingers flying over quantum mathematics that human civilization had learned to use without fully understanding. Elena, the energy requirements would be astronomical. We're talking about manipulating space-time geometry across interplanetary distances. The void-born harvesters absorb energy from everything they consume, Elena pointed out. They're basically flying zero-point energy collectors. What if instead of fighting them, we make them part of the solution? Marcus stared at her. Elena, are you suggesting we use the Voidborn fleet as a power source? I'm suggesting we use the Voidborn fleet as an unwilling construction crew. Elena activated the tactical display showing the approaching harvester formations. They absorb energy and matter to grow larger and stronger. But what if the matter and energy they absorb are designed to make them build something instead of just growing? Zefkal's transmission interrupted the planning session. Commander Vasquez, our analysis suggests you are proposing to manipulate fundamental space-time geometry. This is theoretically possible according to advanced physics, but no civilization in galactic records has ever attempted such large-scale reality modification. Which means the Voidborn have never encountered it as a tactic, Elena pointed out. Zef-KL, can your remaining installations provide matter conversion support if we provide power and coordination protocols? Commander, what are you intending to convert? Elena looked at the stellar cartography display, showing the TRAPPIST system's 7 planets and multiple asteroid belts. Everything. Zefkal, we're going to turn your entire star system into a weapon. The next 6 hours passed in a blur of impossible engineering and desperate improvisation. Phoenix served as the coordination hub for a construction project that redefined the scope of ambitious undertakings. Using Zephyrian matter conversion technology amplified by human quantum probability manipulation, they began restructuring asteroids into components for what Elena had cheerfully described as the galaxy's largest improvised explosive device. The concept was elegantly simple and terrifyingly complex. Instead of building conventional weapons to fight the Voidborn fleet, they would modify the fundamental quantum properties of matter throughout the system. When the harvesters attempted to consume and integrate the prepared materials, they would instead trigger a cascade reaction that would turn their own absorption capabilities against them. Status report, Elena called out, as Phoenix coordinated the modifications to 17 major asteroids and 3 small planets. Quantum restructuring is proceeding ahead of schedule. Dr. Tanaka reported. The asteroid belt materials are now configured to release stored probability distortions when subjected to voidborn absorption techniques. Each modified object contains enough exotic matter to destabilize local spacetime if consumed. Marcus looked up from his communication station. Elena, HFY is reporting that their remaining installations have successfully modified atmospheric composition on 4 planets. When the Voidborn attempt to harvest those worlds, they'll be consuming matter that has been pre-programmed to become highly improbable to exist. And our friends are taking the bait? Lieutenant Commander Kim studied the long-range sensors. The advanced elements of the Voidborn fleet are beginning standard harvesting operations on the outer system. They're consuming modified materials exactly as predicted. Elena watched the tactical display as the first harvester ships began to glow with unusual energy patterns. The Voidborn creatures were absorbing matter that had been quantum programmed to become unstable when integrated into their living metal superstructures. Elena, Doctor, Tanaka said urgently, the harvesters are growing larger, but their energy signatures are becoming increasingly erratic. I think the modified matter is interfering with their ability to maintain structural coherence. The main display showed something that had never been seen in galactic history. Voidborn harvesters experiencing technical difficulties. The massive creatures were swelling beyond their normal proportions as they consumed prepared materials, but instead of becoming more powerful, they were becoming less stable. Commander, HFY transmitted, our sensors show the affected harvesters are releasing significant quantities of absorbed energy. They appear to be unable to properly integrate the modified matter you have provided. Elena smiled grimly. That's exactly the point. Marcus, signal the arriving Terran fleet. Tell Admiral Chen that the party is starting early and she's invited to join the fireworks. The response came immediately. Admiral Sarah Chen's voice carried across interstellar space with characteristic determination. Elena, this is Sarah. Phoenix's quantum signature is visible from 2 light-years away. What exactly have you been building out there?
Admiral, we've been preparing a warm welcome for our Voidborn guests.
Are you ready to see how humans fight a space war? Alina, scanners show 200+ hostiles in system. Please tell me you have a plan that doesn't require us to fight them individually. Eleanor looked around the bridge of humanity's first starship, watching her crew manage systems that were reshaping reality according to human engineering principles. Sarah, we're not going to fight them individually. We're going to convince them to fight each other. Explain. The modified matter they're consuming is designed to become unstable when multiple harvesters attempt to share absorbed energy through their collective consciousness. As they try to coordinate their response to our fleet, they'll trigger cascade failures throughout their formation. The long-range sensors showed the first signs of Elena's strategy working. As the Voidborn harvesters attempted to communicate and coordinate through their typical energy-sharing networks, the destabilized matter they had consumed began creating feedback loops. Individual harvesters started experiencing uncontrolled growth spurts that their structural systems couldn't manage. Admiral Chen, Elena continued. When you arrive, you won't be facing an organized fleet. You'll be facing a group of very angry, very confused cosmic predators who suddenly can't control their own absorption abilities. Sarah's response carried professional admiration mixed with concern for Elena's mental health. Elena, are you telling me that your tactical plan involves giving the enemy indigestion? Admiral, I'm telling you that our tactical plan involves weaponizing the enemy's greatest strength against them. The Voidborn have never lost because they absorb and integrate everything they fight, but they've never tried to absorb anything that was specifically designed to be impossible to digest. As if to emphasize her point, the nearest harvester ship suddenly expanded beyond its structural limits and began shedding metallic debris as its own growth systems turned against it. The creature's death wails, transmitted across subspace frequencies, carried overtones of confusion and pain that no translation system could properly interpret. Elena, Marcus reported, the Voidborn fleet is breaking formation. They're trying to purge the modified matter from their systems, but the quantum programming makes the material increasingly difficult to eliminate once absorbed. Elena watched as humanity's most impossible plan unfolded exactly as designed. The Voidborn, who had conquered 17 civilizations by being unstoppably efficient at consumption and absorption, were discovering the drawbacks of never learning to be selective about what they consumed.
Admiral Chen, the system is prepared for the Terran fleet's arrival.
We've essentially turned the entire star system into a trap designed specifically for enemies who grow stronger by eating everything they encounter. Sarah's laughter carried across the quantum communication link. Elena, when we get home, you're going to have to explain to human military doctrine instructors how you won a space battle by feeding the enemy poisoned asteroids. Elena looked out at the TRAPPIST system, watching impossible energies dance between modified planets as the Voidborn fleet struggled with the consequences of consuming matter that had been designed to be impossible to properly digest. In the distance, quantum signatures announced the arrival of 17 more human ships, each one carrying crews who had volunteered for humanity's most dangerous rescue mission. Sarah, when we get home, I'm going to have to explain how humans accidentally discovered that the most effective way to fight cosmic predators is to cook dinner for them. The Battle of Trappist, as it would later be recorded in galactic historical archives, lasted exactly 14 minutes and 37 seconds. The Terran rescue fleet emerged from quantum displacement to find a void-born armada in the advanced stages of catastrophic systems failure, their own absorption abilities turned against them by Elena's impossible engineering. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of humanity's hope, watching tactical displays that showed 200 of the galaxy's most feared predators writhing in space as they tried to purge matter that had been quantum programmed to be impossible to fully digest. The scene was simultaneously magnificent and disturbing. Massive harvester ships swelling beyond structural limits, then fragmenting into metallic debris as their own growth systems consumed them from within. "Admiral," reported Commander Liu from the tactical station, "Phoenix is signaling all clear." The Voidborn fleet is no longer capable of coordinated action. Individual harvesters are focused entirely on managing their own structural failures. Sarah activated the fleet-wide communication system. All ships maintain defensive formations but do not engage unless directly threatened. Phoenix has already done the hard work for us. Elena's voice came through the quantum link with characteristic understatement. Sarah, I think we've established diplomatic contact with the local survivors. High Coordinators FKL would like to discuss what just happened, though I'm not sure our translator protocols have adequate vocabulary for explaining human tactical doctrine. Elena, what exactly did happen? Our sensors show impossible energy readings throughout the system, and the Voidborn fleet appears to be self-destructing. Well, Elena replied, it turns out that when you give cosmic predators a severe case of indigestion, they lose most of their interest in conquering civilizations. The modified matter they consumed is causing cascade failures in their absorption networks. They're so busy trying not to explode that they've completely forgotten about harvesting operations. Sarah studied the tactical data streaming from Phoenix's sensors. Individual Voidborn harvesters were now drifting aimlessly through the system, their energy signatures fluctuating wildly as they struggled with the consequences of consuming matter that violated several principles of organized physics. Admiral Chen, came a new transmission. This one from High Coordinators FKL. The Zephyrian Defense Council wishes to formally thank the Terran species for your intervention. However, we must confess complete bewilderment regarding your tactical methodologies. Sarah opened a channel to the Zephyrian Command Center, seeing the Octopus Mantis alien's image appear on her main screen. High Coordinator, we're grateful that we could assist. Though I should clarify that the tactical innovation here belongs entirely to Commander Vasquez and her crew. Zeph Carl's response carried undertones that the translator interpreted as profound confusion mixed with admiration. Admiral Chen, our species has studied warfare for thousands of years. We have analyzed the military doctrines of 17 different civilizations. Never have we encountered a strategic approach that involves deliberately feeding modified matter to enemy forces with the intention of causing them to experience catastrophic growth disorders. Eleanor's voice joined the conversation. High Coordinator, human military doctrine is based on the principle that any sufficiently determined application of engineering can solve tactical problems that seem impossible. We looked at the Voidborn's greatest strength and figured out how to make it into their greatest weakness. But the energy requirements for modifying matter at the quantum level across an entire star system should have been prohibitive. Zeph Carroll protested.
Our calculations suggest that such modifications would require the total energy output of several stars.
That's why we didn't provide the energy, Elena explained cheerfully. We let the Voidborn provide their own energy by consuming the modified materials. Essentially, we convinced them to power their own defeat. Sarah listened to this exchange while reviewing after-action reports from her fleet commanders. The Terran rescue fleet had arrived prepared for the largest space battle in human history, only to discover that Elena had already won the war using principles that military academies would spend decades trying to understand. Elena, what's the current status of Voidborn forces? Scattered and disoriented, but not destroyed, Elena replied. The harvesters that consumed modified matter are experiencing ongoing systems failures, but they're adapting. Within a few days, they'll probably develop ways to purge the problematic materials from their systems. So this is a temporary victory? Sarah, this is a permanent paradigm shift. The Voidborn have never encountered resistance that turned their own capabilities against them. They're going to have to completely restructure their strategic doctrine, and cosmic predators aren't exactly known for rapid adaptation to new concepts. Zeph Kaal's transmission interrupted their conversation. Commander Vasquez, Admiral Chen, our long-range sensors are detecting something unprecedented. Voidborn forces throughout this region of the galaxy appear to be withdrawing from active harvesting operations. Sarah felt a chill of possibility. Withdrawing to where? Unknown, Admiral. But the withdrawal is comprehensive. 17 star systems that were under active Voidborn assault are reporting that harvester fleets have departed without completing their consumption cycles. Elena's response carried the tone of someone who had just realized the full implications of her actions. Sarah, I think we may have accidentally started something bigger than a rescue mission. Before either Admiral could respond, a new transmission arrived on frequencies that no human technology should have been able to access. The signal came from deep space, originating from a source that appeared to be moving at significant fractions of light speed toward the TRAPPIST system. Unknown tacticians of impossible warfare, the transmission began, its alien harmonies somehow conveying curiosity rather than hostility. This is deep unity of eternal hunger, speaking for Voidborn collective consciousness. Your methods of resistance creation are unknown to our experience records spanning thousands of consumed civilizations. Sarah exchanged glances with her crew, seeing the same realization on every face. They were about to engage in diplomatic negotiations with a cosmic predator species that had never before encountered effective resistance. This is Admiral Sarah Chen, representing the Terran species. Are you requesting formal communication? Terran Admiral Chen. We request comprehension sharing regarding warfare methods that convert consumption strength into structural weakness. Your species has demonstrated capability combinations unknown to galactic civilization records. Voidborn collective consciousness experiences curiosity state regarding human tactical development processes. Elena's voice joined the conversation. Deep unity of eternal hunger. Human tactical development is based on the principle that any problem can be solved if you're stubborn enough to keep trying solutions that other people say won't work. The pause that followed this statement suggested that the Voidborn consciousness was processing concepts that had no equivalent in their experience. Human Commander Vasquez speaks of persistence despite logical impossibility. This approach to problem-solving is unprecedented in Voidborn records. Most species calculate probability of success before attempting resistance. Why do humans not perform rational analysis of tactical impossibility? Sarah found herself smiling despite the cosmic significance of the moment. Deep unity of eternal hunger, humans perform rational analysis. We just don't let rational analysis prevent us from attempting solutions that rational analysis says are impossible. Admiral Chen, Zeph Kaal interrupted urgently. We're detecting massive quantum signatures approaching this system. The energy patterns match no known technology in galactic archives. Elena checked Phoenix's long-range sensors. Sarah, we've got company. Big company. I'm reading quantum displacement signatures consistent with faster-than-light vessels, but the technological signatures don't match Zephyrian, Voidborn, or human systems. The new arrivals materialized at the edge of the system, in formations that suggested both advanced technology and diplomatic intent. The ships appeared to represent at least 6 different technological approaches, their designs ranging from crystalline structures that resembled grown rather than built technology to metallic constructs that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. This is quite unexpected, came a new transmission in perfect, unaccented human language. We are representatives of the Galactic Coordination Council, and we came here expecting to document the final destruction of the Zephyrian species by Voidborn forces. Instead, we find evidence of successful resistance using tactical methodologies that our combined records suggest are impossible. Sarah activated the fleet-wide alert system. First contact with one alien species had been challenging enough. Simultaneous contact with what appeared to be a galactic government was beyond any scenario human diplomats had prepared for. This is Admiral Sarah Chen, commanding the Terran Rescue Fleet. We came here in response to a Zephyrian distress signal, and we've provided assistance according to our capabilities. Admiral Chen, we are aware of the Zephyrian signal transmission. What we are not aware of is how a species with no previous interstellar presence developed technology capable of neutralizing Voidborn harvester fleets within the span of. There was a pause. presumably for consultation of records, less than one of your standard years. Elena joined the conversation with characteristic directness. We borrowed some of your technology, improved it according to human engineering principles, and applied it to problems you apparently thought were unsolvable. Commander Vasquez, the galactic representative, continued. Our records indicate that your species was classified as pre-industrial when last observed. The technological development curve you have demonstrated is unprecedented in galactic history. Well, Elena replied, humans have always been exceptional at achieving things that galactic history says are unprecedented. Sarah studied the tactical display showing 17 human ships surrounded by alien vessels representing the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy, while void-born harvesters drifted nearby in various states of technological indigestion. The situation was simultaneously the greatest diplomatic opportunity and the greatest potential disaster in human history. Galactic Coordination Council representatives, Sarah began carefully, humanity requests formal diplomatic recognition and entry into galactic civilization. We're prepared to share the technological innovations that made today's victory possible in exchange for full participation in interstellar community. Admiral Chen. The response came after what felt like lengthy consultation. The Galactic Coordination Council has never encountered a species that achieved faster-than-light capability specifically to conduct rescue operations for civilizations they had never met. Your tactical innovations aside, human motivations appear to be unprecedented in galactic records. Zefkaal added his voice to the conversation. Galactic Council, the Zephyrian species formally endorses human admission to galactic civilization. Their intervention has saved our species from extinction, and their technological approaches offer solutions to problems we had considered unsolvable. Even the Voidborn representative contributed an opinion. Voidborn collective consciousness supports human inclusion in galactic coordination structures. Species that creates impossible solutions presents opportunities for learning experiences previously unavailable to collective consciousness. Sarah felt history pivoting around this moment, humanity's transformation from an isolated primitive species to a recognized member of galactic civilization, accomplished through pure stubborn determination to help people they'd never met. Admiral Chen, the galactic representative, concluded, the Galactic Coordination Council formally recognizes the Terran species as a full member of galactic civilization, with all rights and responsibilities thereof. Welcome to the galaxy, humans. We suspect that interstellar civilization will never be quite the same. Elena's laughter carried across the quantum communication links, connecting 17 human ships to alien civilizations scattered across the galaxy. Well, Sarah, I think we can officially say that the rescue mission was successful. Sarah looked out at the stars that no longer seemed impossibly distant, knowing that humanity had earned its place among them, not through conquest or superior technology, but through the simple refusal to let anyone suffer alone when help was possible. Eleanor, when we get home, how exactly do we explain to Earth that we accidentally became a galactic superpower by feeding poisoned asteroids to cosmic predators? Admiral, we tell them the truth, that humans have always been the species that achieves impossible things by refusing to accept that impossible things are impossible. As the Terran rescue fleet prepared for the journey home, carrying with them formal recognition of humanity as a galactic civilization, Elena stood on Phoenix's observation deck watching the stars. The galaxy was vast, filled with wonders and challenges beyond human imagination. But it was also filled with people who sometimes needed help. And humans, Elena reflected with satisfaction, had always been very good at helping people who needed help, even when it was impossible.